another episode of the Tina Parker Show. I'm doing it a little bit different. Of course, we are live. And also, I've been going live on TikTok, but I'm switching it up. Okay. I want to make sure this gets on YouTube. And going forward, if this goes well, we'll continue to do that. Today, we're talking about something that is happening tomorrow. Okay. This is the Free American Walkout. Free America Walkout. Have any of you heard about it? All right. What this is, we're going to talk all about it today. So come on in, tell your friends, share this episode with someone that you think needs to hear it, another woman. All right. If you don't know, I am the founder of WTFU. That is Wake the Families Up, or you could think of it as Wake the F Up. And WACDA, which is Women and Children Defense Alliance. So stay tuned, join, get close. Good things are coming. The Free America Walkout. We're going to explain that, power control, and why systems want your emotional labor. What is this all about? Okay, on January 20th, I believe that's tomorrow, grassroots organizers called for a nationwide Free America Walkout in response to immigration enforcement, healthcare policy changes, gender-affirming care debates, and the increased presence of National Guard troops in the U.S. cities. But what is this walkout really about? Okay, this is where we use our discernment. Okay, so in this episode, I'm going to break down why weekday walkouts are being tested instead of a weekend rally, how movements use labor withdrawal as leverage, the psychology behind labor as leverage, the psychology behind mass mobilization, what history teaches us about protests, power, and long-term outcomes, and why awakened women don't react emotionally. They observe strategically. Okay, ladies, that's what we do. This is not about left or right. This is about control versus your consciousness. Okay, so if you value freedom, critical thinking, and personal sovereignty, this episode is for you. Don't forget to subscribe if you want real content, grounded truth, and not just narratives. Okay, comment your thoughts below. I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to connect with you. And if there's anything I can do to help you, please reach out. Okay, so let's slow down what this is about. Okay, so on January 20th, organizers called for what they're calling a Free America Walkout. They're asking people to walk out of school, work, and daily life, not on a weekend, but on a weekday. That alone should make you pause. I'm not here to tell you whether it's good or bad. I'm here to ask you why now, why this way, and what really is being tested. Because women that are awakened, they don't just react, they observe, they think, what is this really about? Okay, so what is Free America Walkout? The walkout is being organized in response to immigration enforcement actions, healthcare policy changes, gender-affirming care debates, increased National Guard presence in cities. Organizers say this is about defending rights, bodies, and livelihoods. But the method matters just as much as the message. So this is not a rally. This is not a march. This is a labor withdrawal. Okay, and that tells us something very important. Okay, why a weekday walkout? Weekday protests are symbolic. Weekday walkouts are economic. So here's what they're going to test. How many people will stop producing? How many people will disrupt systems? How many people will obey the call? How emotionally reactive the population is. Okay, this isn't about signs. It's not about pressure. And pressure, remember, just like diamonds, pressure is currency. Okay, pressure is what creates diamonds. So be okay with some pressure. Okay, but you got to think labor, withdrawing labor, power, or dependence. Here's the part women need to understand. Okay, when you stop working, shopping, producing, or participating, you're sending a message. But that message cuts two ways. Yes, the system will notice the disruption, but systems also measure compliance. Remember that. They're measuring compliance, your emotional vitality, your emotional intelligence, okay, and your dependency. Movements don't just fight power, they collect data. Okay, remember, we've been tested before. So keep that in mind. So, who shows up, who follows, who reacts, and who needs direction? Awareness is knowing you're always being observed. Okay, here's the psychology of mass movements. Most people think movements are about justice. In reality, movements are about identity, belonging, emotional release, meaning during uncertainty. So a lot of people will just join these movements because they think, I just want to be a part of something, right? That doesn't make them wrong, but it does make them powerful tools. And any tool can be used or misused. This is why awakened women don't outsource their discernment to crowds. Here's what history when walkouts worked, okay? History shows that walkouts can create change. But notice something important. The wins didn't happen immediately. They took decades. And the cultural shift mattered more than the moment, which leads to the real question. The question no one is asking. Is this walkout about immediate results or stress testing obedience or measuring engagement, emotional mobilization, or identifying who will comply without questioning? Because power doesn't always silence people. Sometimes it invites them to act, just to see how. Why awakened women are a threat. Where's my awakened women? Here's why awakened women, like me, are a problem for systems like this. We don't move because we're told. We don't outsource our conscious. We don't confuse emotion with wisdom. And we don't confuse unity with truth. We don't need to be managed. A woman who thinks for herself is harder to predict, harder to control, and harder to manipulate. That's the real threat here. I'm not here to tell you to walk out. I'm not here to tell you to stay in. I'm here to remind you, ladies, your awareness is power. Any system, political, social, or ideological, that thrives on emotional reaction is weakened by calm discernment. You don't have to be loud to be dangerous. You just have to be awake. Okay, freedom doesn't disappear in one moment. I said this yesterday. It fades when people stop thinking for themselves. Okay, then I asked a deeper question. What is this gender affirming care mean? We have to ask these questions. What are they trying to do here? Okay, so gender affirming care is a broad term for medical, mental health, or social support given to someone who says their gender identity doesn't match their biological sex. Okay, it means supporting how someone says they feel about their gender. This is where confusion happens because the term covers very different things. Okay, so counseling and therapy, it covers talking with a therapist, exploring feelings, stress, identity, anxiety, no drugs, no surgery. Most people agree with this that this is appropriate and helpful. Okay, but the social changes, let's talk about that. Changing name or pronouns. changing clothes or appearance, using different bathrooms or school records. This is not medical, but it can affect school, parents, and workplaces. Puberty blockers for minors, okay? Medications that pause puberty. Effects may or may not be fully reversible. Remember that. Many of these are children. Used originally for early puberty. This is one of the biggest debate points. And this is why it's important that, ladies, we're critically thinking about this entire thing, okay? Hormone treatments, estrogen or testosterone, causes physical changes, voice, body, hair, breasts, muscle. Some changes are permanent. Much more controversial for minors, wouldn't you say? Okay, surgeries, altering breasts or genitals, permanent or irreversible. Very controversial, especially for anyone under 18. Why is it controversial? Okay, because people disagree with 4 big questions. Age. At what age could someone make life-altering medical decisions? Consent. Can a child fully understand long-term consequences? And what role should parents play? Safety and evidence. As long-term effects fully known? Are the long-term effects fully known? And are studies strong enough yet? Rights versus protection. How do we balance individual feelings with child protection? And where does the medical care end with this mindset? Where does this end? It's just like, and if we're willing to go here, what's next? Does that make sense? Okay, why does government get involved? Because once something becomes covered by insurance, funded by taxpayers, mandated in schools or healthcare systems, it's no longer just personal. Okay, it becomes a policy. That means we all get to play by that new rule, that new law. Okay, and keep in mind, does it make sense? Okay, this is where we have to use common sense. Okay, it's no longer just personal, it becomes a policy. Don't forget that. That's why people argue so strongly. It affects laws, education, parental rights, medical ethics, and freedom of belief. And why women especially care about this. Women tend to ask, who protects the children? Who decides what's permanent? Who benefits financially here? That's a big one. Well, they're all big. Why are questions sometimes shut down? Why does disagreement get labeled as hate? These are reasonable questions, and it's not being cruel. Like, help me understand. Sell me on this. Okay? I have listened to both sides, always. And then I'll make my own decision based on my common sense factor, critical thinking factor. Okay, the most important thing to understand is you can care about people, want compassion, and oppose bullying. Okay, and still ask hard questions about medicine, children, and government power. Those are not opposites. Gender affirming care means supporting how someone feels, but people disagree on how far medicine and government should go, especially with kids. I'm here to protect the kids, okay? I don't want anything that's going to change their sex when they're a child. That doesn't make sense to me, okay? Just like this is kind of off the, topic of this, but it still applies, okay? I live in the state of Utah. Everybody here gets baptized at 8. If you wanted to do that, and if your family believes in that, and that's great. when I asked my mom, Mom, I've got to get baptized. All my friends are getting baptized. And she goes, No, you don't. You're 8 years old. You don't know what you're even doing. You're doing it because everybody else is doing it. No, you need to really understand the church, the religion, everything before you're going to go and make that decision. So she said, No, you're too young. It doesn't even make sense. I'm grateful I had parents like that. Okay, so a final grounding thought. This debate isn't really about kindness versus hate. It's about boundaries, responsibility, long-term consequences. Who gets to decide? And awakened women don't shut down questions. They slow down and think. All right? I hope this episode helped you. And I want you to really think tomorrow as they're doing this Free America walkout. And really, I want you to think, oh, is this a psychological test? Another one? They've played them on us as long as we've been around here. Okay. So anyway, I'm here to bring you what's going on, and I'm here to help offer you discernment and just the information so that you can make a decision that makes sense for you. I hope this helps. Share this with a friend that needs to hear it. And I appreciate you for joining. Have a great rest of your Sunday. Bye. Now, I got to see how to end this. Oh, that wasn't it. Give me a minute. This is my first time going live on here. Is it there? Nope. Huh. Maybe I just X.